thank you very much for joining us, everybody. As I said, it's Adam Block here from Fusion Consulting Group, and welcome to the final webinar of our winter series. We felt that it would be fantastic to bring two parts of Fusion Consulting Group together to help our clients and you guys who may be very different people. You may be an entrepreneur looking to start a business, you may be already up and running, or you may be a young business that's looking to grow. But as we get closer to the new financial year, we felt that by bringing Fusion accountancy together with Fusion's CFO as a service, we will be able to provide you with some interesting ideas and some thoughts leading up to your planning for the new financial year. So the title of today, as you can see, is Key Things That Your Accountant and your CFO Should Be Thinking About and Doing to Help You Plan for 2025. Okay, so the agenda for today, our short webinar, introductions, who are we? Then we will look at the various items and aspects that we've prepared for you, and then we can go into Q&A. But let me just say something right now. If you do want to ask a question during the Q&A, please do put it in the chat and I will receive that, and maybe we'll try and address it at the time or the end of the session. So, okay, so who am I? I am Adam Block. I sit on the management team here at Fusion Consulting Group. I have two responsibilities, two parts of my P&L within the business. I run what's called Fusion Recruitment, but I also lead our CFO as a service line of business. Our CFO as a service is a fractional service. So for young companies that are looking for expertise, CFO expertise and finance director expertise on a fractional or part-time basis, either on an ongoing basis or to help with specific projects. But reporting, commercial operations, strategic finance, these are the areas that we can help on an ongoing monthly basis or on a project basis. I have with me, delighted to have with me on my left here, is Pratul. Pratul is sits within the Fusion Accountancy Division. And maybe you can just say a little bit about yourself, Pratul.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're enjoying the sunshine out there. I know it's first week of March, but feels like spring is in the air. Yes, so my name is Pratul. I'm the head of accounting here in the Finchley office. I've got over 23 years of experience working in small, medium, and large size firms. I joined Fusion early last year, and it feels like I've been here for quite a long time. Everyone's been very helpful and accommodating. And I look after a portfolio of around 300 clients with a team of 5 people in our office. We've got 2 other offices, and in total in the accountancy department, we are about 35 of us, over 3 offices, 1 offshore team in Johannesburg, and an outsourcing team as well. So it's pretty diverse.
Fantastic. Yeah, very important part of the Fusion team. We also have with us Simon Cole. Simon sits in the CFO as a service team as one of the CFOs working with our portfolio clients. Simon, great to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Just a few words about yourself. That'll be really helpful.
Okay. I've been a commercial accountant for over 20 years now. I've worked along with a load of different businesses and different types of businesses. So Disney, Discovery, Atari computer games, lots of big companies doing really interesting things across media or supply chain, retail. And then I guess in the last 10 years, I focused more on diversifying a portfolio of companies that range from media to all sorts of entertainment, stock, just loads of different types. And what I've been mostly involved in is fundraising for those companies and basically trying to get a handle on what they do, what works well, and try to sort of amplify that through the involvement that I have with them.
Fantastic. Yeah, a fantastic mix of great experiences, kind of ranging from best practice within larger companies and then supporting, entrepreneurial businesses. A really, really great mix of experience. So yeah, great to have you with us.
Thank you.
just to remind everybody, if you do want to put any questions at any time in the chat, then please feel free to do so. Just a little for those of you that aren't aware of Fusion, have just joined us for the first time, then a little bit of background on Fusion. So Fusion Consulting Group is a broad professional services business supporting entrepreneurs and SMEs in their quest to build and grow their businesses. We have a really powerful mix of professional services that range from Prattel's side of the business, which is Fusion Accountancy, working with a whole host of both private clients and also SMEs. We also have a line of tax business, so Fusion Consulting, Fusion Tax, and we operate again with both private clients and corporates and SMEs, looking at both statutory tax and strategic advisory tax services. We have Fusion Financial, which is a wealth management business, again working with individuals on their own plans, their own financial plans, and working with companies as well. We provide legal services, a multitude of corporate law legal activities. And we also have Fusion Recruitment, which is an executive search and recruitment business focusing on, in the main, the finance function, but straying into human resources and operations. Within Fusion Recruitment, we run the CFO as a services business, which, as a reminder, is where Simon sits at the moment. So we kind of wanted to bring a few themes together. The themes that we think are important to think about when you are growing or building your business, and also when you're thinking about this new springtime financial year that starts soon, isn't it, Prattel? And in that sense, the themes that we're looking for to kind of add into this conversation is, just thinking about software and applications and technology and how you could apply it within your business. How important is data? Data is it's a broadly used, overbroke term, but how do you really make it impactful and powerful for your business? And then how do you marry up people and financial data and make it all tick? So those are the kind of themes that run through the questions I have for both Prattel and for Simon. So, okay, we'll jump to the next slide so you can see some of the things that we want to talk about. So, I guess I just turning to Prattel first of all, software and tools. You have a portfolio of 300 clients right now. You've worked with a number of different types of businesses. You would have worked with different apps and technologies. Just maybe Prattel, give me an idea as to how important is automating your work and the experiences you've had recently, perhaps whilst you've been working at Fusion.
Sure. Thank you, Adam. So as you know, there are a number of cloud-based accounting softwares in the market, and sometimes it does make it difficult to choose the right one for your particular business. Here at Fusion, we have found that Xero works very well for our clients. The reviews we've had from our clients is that it is user-friendly, it's very easy to input data, and the reports are easy to read and make sense. Now, I'll give you a live example we had at Fusion. Late last year, we acquired a client which is in the construction industry and does high-end fit-outs. Now, when we met up with the client, we went to their premises. They're based near Gatwick Airport. When we went there, we could see stacks and stacks of paper, lever arch files, etc. And they were all paper-based. And we were a bit taken aback, like in being 2024, saying that they still use paper. What they used to do was they used to print out supplier invoices, 3 copies of each supplier invoice, so that they could be rubber stamped and approved by the project manager, the supervisor, and then the director for approval for payment. And we told them that you're spending so much time and energy printing this out and getting it signed, etc. All the project managers have to be in the office, make their time to come there to get signed off, etc. So what we did was we introduced them to Zero as well as Data Molino and Approval Max. Now, these are like new kind of AI softwares whereby it's automatically input. So Approval Max, you can use it via an app. So the invoice will come into the app, the project manager, wherever they're on projects, because they do high-end fit outs, they don't need to come into the office. They can just approve it by their phone, and then the supervisor can have a look at it from there, and the director can approve and sign off the payment. So it makes it easier and quicker to get these out rather than printing out paper. So we showed them this, and they were really impressed with Approval Max and Data Molino and how it interacts with Zero, making it more efficient and effective. So, it was like a win-win situation. They became more environmental friendly, sustainable, and they saw that the project managers found it a really, really useful tool of having it on their app. I know sometimes they're on the beach, but they had to do the payment, etc. But they found it really good.
That's great. I mean, it is quite unusual in this day and age to find a company that isn't using some kind of software or platform or application to drive financial information. But, that sounds like a huge win for them.
Absolutely.
I guess, in terms of other companies that either are setting up or have set up that are a little bit more tech savvy, then I guess there's a process. If they want to improve and find more efficiencies with greater technology, then there's a process to go through to identify which is the right technology for them.
Exactly, yes. And that's where we are here to help. We can kind of have initial chat meeting just to see what processes we can help you with, or if you're using the software you're familiar with, what other apps or tools are out there to help your business be more efficient and effective.
Exactly, yeah. Simon, I hope you don't mind if I just bring you in here, because you obviously work closely with Prattle and his team, and you're on the other side of the fence, actually working with our clients. What's your experience of the rationale for continue looking at how you are, automating your information, your data?
Well, I think it's important to look at the business that you work with and sort of apply the needs that they have to the software that's out there, and sort of vice versa. I think there was obviously a bit of a sea change in 2020 with COVID, where people are now working from home, or you've got this kind of geographical dispersion, but you want to have this dynamic business and company where everyone's sort of part of something. So you can have we've got offices in different places, say in Canada and China and the UK, different time zones, different issues, different firewalls. But you want people to be connected. So you have Slack. You want people to do projects. So you have Monday.com. You want to solve a specific problem, like you might have a load of companies and entities. So you might want to consolidate. So there's Fathom. There's all sorts of great tools out there. I guess the big thing is to make sure that you're installing stuff that's cost effective and actually works for your business and solves a problem, as opposed to thinking, well, everyone else has got Slack, we better have it as well. They're all great tools. They should be used well, and they should sort of move the business forward. I think that's really key.
Well, that's a very good point. They should all be used, and that should move a business forward. But just coming back to you, Prattle, it's one thing identifying the right system, and it's another thing having the right applications that integrate nicely with that system. But how do you make sure it's, what's the cadence that you work on a monthly basis, and how do you make sure that all parties that are involved are actually using the right information?
So I would say that collaboration is a key. I mean, I know like with the tools out there, the information, it can be very, you just want to go right into it. Like, for example, I want to use ChatGPT, but you need to be careful how you use the data, because as I said, data can be a friend or a foe. There's GDPR issues, which you need to be aware of, data protection. So you need to be very careful on how you use that data. Of course, timely data, quick and reliable information can be a big difference, between winning and losing a customer, or getting some kind of loans or debt from financial institutions. And quick and accurate information is efficient and effective if used in the right way. I mean, I think recently with Simon, we've been collaborating on a mutual client, And we've just had email exchange today about how information can be exchanged and what kind of information is used and how it's presented.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's, yeah, I was going to just, again, bring you in, Simon. It's about, when you turn to new technologies to drive your financial information and drive your business, it's, as far as we're concerned, Fusion, I guess it's about the proper setup and who's doing what. I mean, what's your view on how to actually make sure that people are using the reliable information that's being spat out?
Well, there's a lovely saying, there's the source of truth. So what is the data that's the source of truth? Because I've worked in computer games company, for example, where you have a marketing meeting, the operations team are there, salesperson's there, everybody's sort of blaming each other because they're all using slightly skewed versions of the same numbers to say, well, you didn't mark it in time, which meant we couldn't sell it to the timeline that you said we should be selling to, but operations weren't ready anyway because they didn't have enough stock. So you have this kind of symbiotic relationship in a company, which is essential. It could fall apart really easily because people are leaning on the data in different ways to protect their own interests. So I think that's quite an interesting problem. And also what I've found, generally speaking, is that everything ends up back on a spreadsheet. So you can give people these amazing dashboards and say, this is how the business is doing versus budget, or, we've sold this, X, Y, Z. But when you give them that sort of beautiful dashboard, they sort of say, well, I'd like the Excel so I can play with it, and you kind of go, well, why do you need that? So you can't get people away from this this mentality. You spend £1 million installing one of these amazing bits of software like Workday, and it all goes back to a spreadsheet. So I think that mentality needs to change as well. People need to trust what they're given a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think it is this buy-in to the right process, and I think I think it's fair to say that both Fusion Accountancy and CFO as a Service, the approach when we start working with a client in terms of scoping is to make sure that we all, both on client side and service provider side, understand what's going on a monthly basis, where the input is coming from. What the output looks like, what's important to acknowledge, and how much communication there is during a monthly or quarterly and annual cycle. And I think, yeah, as I said, I think it's really important. You have to find the right platforms and technology to support you, so you understand, simply simply items like, well, what cash have I got to spend and what cash have I got to invest. But if you don't regularly understand the information or regularly use it, then you won't have that information to hand. So I can agree with that. So Simon, just taking the data piece a little bit deeper. People, the word data is just. I mean, we're just in a world of data. How do you kind of ensure that, as you said, there isn't conflicting data? How do you make sure, that it's accurate? How do we really make sure that it's used well?
Well, I think it's a big problem in all businesses, because there's a whole, there's a saying, isn't there? You put the junk in, you get junk out. So providing everything's actually being put in and it's correct and it's accurate, in theory, you should be able to then pull out useful information which the business can then use, and you give it to the right people, and the right people do something useful with that. So you can say, well, we can't employ these extra people, or actually it's turned out that everyone in Germany is buying our products, so let's double down on that. And then you talk to marketing and say you need to re-angle your marketing to target Germany, for example. So it can be used in a really powerful way. But I think the key thing is that provided the data is accurate and what's gone into the system is accurate, you can rely on that, and you have to start to lean on that and trust it. And then you can make good decisions through the business. And I think that's the real power of the data. The problem is that people start to misinterpret it, or look for patterns that aren't there, or come up with a theory that is just hokum, because they've seen something in the data that they've just pulled out that suits their purpose and needs. We should open an office in the Bahamas because we sold one thing there. Well, that's actually not a good reason to do it. So I think there's a lot out there. You have to still distill it, understand it, and I think whilst the computers are getting faster and faster, and you've got ChatGPT, you still need the human angle who can sort of interpret and look at the reality of doing something. And I think the two sort of work in harmony now a lot more as time's going forward.
Sticking on the theme of people and engagement, and I just want to ask you both a question on this, if this is all right. So Basil, just give everybody a kind of understanding about how on a monthly basis that you are on a quarterly basis or how do you interact with your clients? I think what we're talking about here is that you've got to have the right systems, you've got to have the right data, it's got to be input properly. We know where it's what the outputs are, but even that can be, as Simon said, is misinterpreted. Even if it's a binary number, it can be misinterpreted, or the rationale for that number needs to be understood. So how are you interacting with our clients, for example?
So I'd say communication is key. So I try to have regular communication. I know we are in a world, especially post-COVID, people like to, let's say, hide behind emails. So they say, well, I've sent an email and that's it. Now the onus is on the client to respond. But because we're in a service industry, we need to be more proactive. And I said, why don't you just pick up the phone? You're even like with my family, with my daughter, she's happy to do a WhatsApp message or Messenger. I don't know what kind of tools they use, Snapchat, which I'm banned from apparently because I'm too old. But they're happy to do that. But they don't want to speak on the phone. I said, phone, you get that human touch. You got the chat, GPT, AI, all that. But human touch, as Simon said, is very crucial. So what we tell the clients here and what I tell my team is, you can send an email, but why don't you call them and then follow up with an email? Because that way the client feels appreciated. They says, there may be some things outside of business they want to talk about, and their services, like not just a CFO as a service, but there could be some tax issues or something else. With 2025, all the tax changes happening, there's something we can kind of tell them. So I would say communication is key when we're speaking to our clients. We try to have be proactive and at least give the clients a call every quarter saying that how's the business, how's everything, is there anything we can help with? Because at this day and age, especially for most of our clients who are SMEs, cash is a very big issue, especially from financial institution. They do not like lending to SMEs, and we say, look, we are there, we're happy to help you in that, collaborating with Simon from CFO as a service, because we're looking at more historical data, but we're looking at and Simon's looking at more going forward, how can we help so that you can get what you want, funding, etc. So to this day and age, communication is key. Pick up the phone, it makes such a big difference.
It's actually a good point. I think you and your team are fantastic at because of what you do as an outsourced accounting service. There is the sort of expected regularity, cyclical regularity. So the monthly piece, the quarterly piece, the year end, etc. But I think what you're saying is that you will go above and beyond in terms of communicating, so that there isn't any gaps between those specific framework points.
Exactly.
I think that's good. I think it's good. But essentially, so Prattle mentioned, Simon, that the way that he can work closely with you is that he's very much bringing things up to a point and of the position of today. There may be some implications from a cash flow perspective going forward, or tax implications, but you're also kind of connecting with him and then into our companies and our clients, looking forward, helping make decisions. So the question I've got for you is, I've asked Prattle about his engagement with the client from where he sits, but you're in our companies, so there's a community within those companies that you need to interact with to bring those numbers to life about looking forward.
Yeah, I guess the immediate thing whenever I go into any new company is to try to understand the business as quickly as possible, and where that's helpful is if you start to look at a business model and a business plan. You can engage with marketing, sales, product, say what's on the pipe, what are we planning to do, how does the business grow, what's the next year look like, are we opening an office in a new place, new products coming, if it's technology, what's on the roadmap, and how will the revenue trigger with the improved technology, and when that's ready to do. So I think capturing everything, the essence of the business, into a sort of model that can then be quite dynamic and used by the business generally is really, really useful. And I think because I tend to do fairly fixed periods of time, whether they might run for a long time or not, I try to be quite efficient with my time. So everything I do, I try to think about whether I'm saving them money or saving them time or driving some revenue. And I think if you do that, you start to become quite cost effective as a CFO, or you're adding value to the business. And I think that's really important as well, because you're seen as a bit of a cost. So it's important that you generate something powerful for the business, save them money, save them tax, all these kind of things you can actually pay for yourself and actually revenue generate, which is really key.
I do. I completely get that. I guess a common mistake. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but from my experience, common mistake is that any information that's forthcoming, either from Fusion Accountancy or from you, Simon, or the combined efforts, it often gets limited to only part of the audience within a business. So when we think about sales, when we think about marketing, product development, operations, whatever it is, I get the feeling that just bringing everybody online in terms of the past performance and the future potential is critical, right? So you actually end up to varying degrees depending on the size of the company and what's appropriate. You end up spending quite a lot of time with various different parts of the business.
I really like that part. That's the good bit for me. I'm quite a sociable accountant, so I quite like to get out and find out what marketing have got planned, what strategy there is with PR, etc., etc. So, and I think if the best way to gather everyone together is to do the budget, because if you do the budget for the year and you say, right, your CEO wants £5 million of revenue this year, so what does that look like for you? What do you need? What are the people you need? How much you got to spend on digital marketing? How much does that focus on retention and acquisition and engagement? What have you got planned? Then they start to tell you about it. They go, okay, well, you understand my business a little bit, my part of the business and what I have to do. Here are my numbers, and you feed that in. You get some sort of chemistry. I think is really important, and you get their buy-in, because I think they need to buy into where the business is going. They need to be part of it, because if you give them hard numbers and say you need to do this, it's a little bit harder, isn't it? You're dragging people along. Whereas if you can get their enthusiasm in, make them feel like they're part of the solution, I think that's really key.
Enthusiasm is a great word. It segues nicely into our next point, which is let's get the energy and drive everything forward. And part of that process for you, Simon, is often putting business plans and financial models and financial plans together. So if one of our audience is thinking about next year, April 5th onwards, and starting to think about their plan, then what would your advice be? How would you? What's important in terms of that process?
I think understanding your business really clearly is key. Understanding what's working well. If you're a technology or a product business, you probably spend a lot on marketing. So understanding the marketing, how much you spend, what's your customer acquisition cost, how much they spend on you versus what you spend on them, what are the ratios and what can you do to improve them. If there's certain types of things that aren't working, just try and stay away from those and sort of move into other areas. And I think just getting everybody's sort of focus is really, really key.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's probably a process that that people don't maybe take as seriously as they perhaps should, or even if they do and they want to, then it's part of our service to make sure that the plan is really well refined and kicked a little bit, so you can kind of get your scenarios, which are fantastic scenario, average scenario, not so good scenario, the baseline, if you like.
Yeah, and I think those building blocks are really key. So I think understanding how much your customers will spend on you is really important. Understanding if you've got a market opportunity in a certain territory you haven't exploited, what will it cost you to go into those areas? Do you take a loan? Do you look for investment? How do you grow? How do you scale out of where you currently are? Because I think those are really key. It's very easy to sort of sit and stagnate, and ultimately you'll drop off. So you have to kind of stay invigorated. You have to kind of move forward and be dynamic. And I think that's really key. And actually, having somebody like me coming in to look quite coldly at the business and say, well, this works really well and this doesn't seem to work quite so well. Let's do the business plan. Let's do an investor deck. Let's get you some money. These are the things you should spend it on. Spend some more money on technology. You're missing a marketing person. You're missing what's the product roadmap look like? It just starts to focus people a little bit. And maybe they don't have that because they're so busy with the day-to-day of just making things sort of keep going, spin the plates, and that business as usual mentality, which is understandable when you get stuck in it. It's a trench.
Yes.
So having a fresh pair of eyes sometimes helps.
Yeah, I think I really feel that's part of Fusion Consulting Group services, in the sense whether it comes from Prattle and his team in Fusion Accountancy or from you, Simon, as part of the CFO as a service. I think you hit the nail on the head there in terms of a leader in a business, an entrepreneur, someone driving this, they want to focus on the front end. They want to focus on how to build their business. And, all of our services, that the intentions are to provide the bedrock of trust. So whilst they are busy building, that they know that they have a robust accounting service behind them, looking after them, and also, a robust plan in place with varying scenarios that you can tweak on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So I think that's very poignant. Pratul, I've got a question for you now. You get an overview of the whole business. Maybe not what it might be in 2 years' time, but certainly as of today and as of next day, the information comes to you and your team. What does that allow you to do to look after our clients? I mean, you and I are often sort of talking about how do we protect them, in terms of problems, etc.
So so what we do is, as I said prior to that, communication is key. So once the information comes in, we review the information. Now, I know there are certain accountants out there, firms who, like, once the information comes in, it might be like 2 months later, they start looking at it. What we have at Fusion, we try to look at the information as soon as possible within 24 to 48 hours, because we want to make sure that what we have is reliable, accurate, and timely, so the client is not waiting on us or trying to chase us. And they have come to us, they've given us information, they want our advice, because we're not just here for compliance, we're more advisory as well. So we have a look at it. Our response time is 24 to 48 hours within us getting the information back to the client to see what issues they have or what problems are facing. I mean, once we look at, for example, a profit and loss, we see that maybe the turnover is down, but direct cost is up or expenses are up. So, it kind of triggers certain things, saying that, are you going in the right way, or are you trying to build up something for the future? And then, as I said, communication, speak with the client, what's going on? Is there anything out there, anything we can help with? And as you said, because we are a multi-disciplinary group, there's things I can speak with you from a CFO as a service side, or with Simon from a tax perspective, anything from a legal side. We all collaborate together to make sure that the client is advised properly on that information. So that's what I would say, that we try to make it timely, accurate, and get back to the client as soon as possible. The last thing the client wants is radio silence or not heard from 2 or 3 weeks. When they chase, you say, oh yeah, we'll come back to you, because by that time the information may be too old, or if they're trying to get a loan out of the bank or something, and they might have passed the time, and it doesn't look nice. It doesn't look professional at all.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is, we get the trigger points, the early signs that something's changed in the business, and then we're very proactive in terms of making sure we're alerting our clients. But whether an individual is, whether a company or an individual is using our services or not, it does speak to the fact that if you've got the right information in front of you on a regular basis, you can kind of watch the trends and see whether something has changed, or even just hopefully looking at the positive progress. But Simon, just from a financial plan, a forecasting perspective, you might have something to say about something that you and I talk about on a regular basis, which is no surprises.
No surprises. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult not having surprises, but I think you can smooth the way a little bit. I think that forward planning, understanding what the team are going to do, what the company overall is going to do, and its plans, means you can sort of try to smooth out those kind of blips and issues. Whether there's a cash shortage, have to pay the payroll. That's a kind of, for me, that's beyond everything else. So there are certain things optically that look terrible for the business, and I think there are certain things you just cannot do. And it's very easy to avoid those by understanding exactly what's going on in the business, when the sales cadence is, when cash comes in, when your stock needs to be ordered, whatever the type of business is. It's the same thing. You have to sell whatever it is, if it's a service or a product, and if you're not doing that, ultimately you're in trouble. So don't overload the team. Stay scrappy. And someone said to me years ago, "Would you spend that money if it was your money?" Because I thought that was quite a nice way of saying, well, actually, I wouldn't. Why are we spending it then? So I think there's this if you start to treat the business like you're part of the business, like you're an owner, and you're very involved in it, then I think you start to see things slightly differently. You start to just, again, save money, save time, or generate revenue. And if you're not doing one of those three things, I suppose you've got to ask yourself why you're doing that task.
And what you said actually just sparked a thought, spending your own money. So I think that's a very serious point. And in terms of service levels that we provide, our collective services provide, we take it very seriously that if we are advising or helping a client think about what they need to be doing, then it's taken with the seriousness that they take in terms of, thinking about how to invest their own money. So I think that's a very, very important point. Simon, there's another thing that you and I talk about, which is don't burn your day on cosmetic tasks.
Right.
I've known you for a long time, and I think we often come up with these interesting phrases. But what do you mean by that? What's your kind of thinking? Again, with your CFO as a service hat on, and how it relates to some of the things that we've been talking about.
Well, I think you've been given a great opportunity to partner with the CEO and the senior people in the business. And you're going to want to justify the time that you take from them, and what you're actually doing. So I think it sort of warrants not just doing cosmetic tasks. Do the important things that actually help the CEO and the leaders of the company move the business forward. So, get into the numbers, get into understanding what's working, what's not working, understand the business plan. If they're looking at 2 years from now, they want investment. How can you help with that? How can you set up the reading room? How can you do things that they don't necessarily know how to do because that's not what they've done before and possibly isn't in their skill set? So I think you need to, help them. And you don't help them by just polishing up graphs and making them prettier. You want to put in software. You want to do things. You want to identify weaknesses and expose them and help the business decide what they do about that. I think that's really key.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think if you're the entrepreneur yourself, you're probably somewhat biased towards your area of expertise. Could be kind of product development or tech development or people relationships or something like that. And I think from a financial perspective, both Fusion Accountancy and Fusion's CFO as a service, what we'll always be saying to a client is, when it comes to understanding the data, what are the 3 or 4 or 5 key numbers that you want to make sure that you're progressing in the right direction, or making sure that that you've got money to invest. And actually it's trying to kind of keep it quite simple. And if you're able to simplify things and simplify the financial plan or simplify your time, then it means that you can buy back some of the time to do what you do best. And again, I think that that kind of almost speaks to the phrase of "don't burn your day on cosmetic tasks." Well, it's almost don't burn your day on things that maybe not your area of expertise. Perhaps buy in the service or talk to Fusion or talk to someone else. But it's about trying to understand what are the key numbers that will help you understand your business. What are the levers that you can pull? I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Comes to the final question, actually, guys, for both of you. So we talked already a little bit about collaboration, and the power of bringing people and data together. I just want to quote. I won't quote the name of the client, but a client that I think is interesting. So we've gone through an exercise. Our CFO as a service line of business has gone through an exercise with a client. A client at the moment to just finish this project, actually, to redo their financial model to ensure that they can move from one funding provider to another, because the amount that they are allowed to borrow during the course of a month has been very limited, and they are in a project-based service business where that during the course of a month they need to spend money. So there's quite big swings in terms of revenue and money in versus spend out, and they need that flexibility. And I think the having kind of put the model together, they're now in a position to go out and look for new funding, a new funding provider, which I think will be transformational for their business, because they'll have more confidence about taking on new projects as well. Why do I mention that? Is because I think there was quite a big exercise modeling is not just the data and the model and the Excel sheet and taking information out of Xero. It is about bringing people together to truly understand the cadence of a business, to make sure that we understood, exactly what the business requires to achieve this changing finance. So I think people and power collaboration is really important. But I'd just be interested in, as final words, your thoughts on the sort of people and power thing.
I'll start. In terms of people, I think it's human nature that people are all. I mean, once someone is gone, then you'll appreciate the true power of that person or what they brought to the business or in personal life, etc. So I would say, in terms of people, please don't underappreciate or underestimate them, especially with technology in mind, because that human touch still to this day is very, very important. As I said earlier, communication is key, picking up the telephone. And we found out recently about attracting the right people to the business. People retention is very, very important. And to bring someone new in, it is a very, very difficult process. So I'll say to the wider audience out there, the people you have within your business, don't forget to appreciate how they are and what they do for you.
Simon, your sort of final thoughts on the sort of power of people and data and financial activity.
I think Pratul's absolutely right, but I suppose I'll go slightly differently. I think the people in your business are a great tool for the business, obviously, but they're also a powerful networking tool, marketing tool, because they all know 100, 200, 300 people each, and probably got 1,000 people on LinkedIn. What businesses don't do particularly well is try to tap that network and incentivize staff to help become the sales, help become the marketing tool of the business. And I think that's kind of a lost opportunity. So yes, I completely agree with you, get good people in, but actually make them feel, like they're part of the growth, part of the business. Give them a percentage for finding new clients, all this kind of stuff, because actually that's a hell of a lot cheaper than spending, £200,000 on marketing each month, which everybody hasn't got an issue with. It feels like there's an opportunity there to exploit, and obviously cash, I think, is something we probably already mentioned, but it's so important in every business. And I think getting that balance right of investing it if you've got it and trying to get your best ROI off that cash is really key, and not being too scared to get in there and do stuff, whether it's technology or getting new people into the business. You've got to make sure your business grows and evolves, because if you don't, you get taken over by somebody else who will be braver.
Yeah, I can subscribe to all of what you've just said. I mean, and the only thing I would add, I guess, to both parts of the conversation is I think that, understanding, your team's, your own and your team's thoughts around a business is incredibly powerful when it comes to informing numbers. If we just think about sales activity, what's the likelihood of a new sale coming in? It's not a binary. The number's binary, and a date is binary, a month is binary. But in terms of what's going on with a customer, it isn't binary. There's so many items that could impact the drop of a sale or the close of a sale. And I think by deeply talking to your team or your colleagues in sales and marketing and operations in terms of spend, will really inform a business plan, truly inform a business plan. So I think, never underestimate the power of conversation, which then can be translated into, choreographed data. So I think that's really important. We haven't had any, we're just coming on to Q&A, but I don't think we've had any questions put onto the chat during the session. And I'm just literally going to give it probably 10 to 15 seconds to see if there's anybody that would be interested in asking a question. So let's just bear with us just for a minute. Nothing forthcoming as of yet. So I think we'll just start to close. So look, in summary, I think it's a good conversation. Thank you both for your time. It's great to have both Fusion Accountancy and part of Fusion's CFO as a service team together, it's clear that you work hand in hand, and it's a seamless means of communication when it comes to financial data, both reporting and looking forward and helping a client look forward. But some of the things that I've taken note of myself is the power of technology and taking a look at what applications can help you start or grow your existing business. Does the application and the platform and the software that you have really empower your business? And I think that's something that people could be thinking about going forward. We've talked quite some length about communication and how to marry up financial data and communication with your team, and if we're working with us as well. I think if you haven't got a business plan that avoids those cash flow surprises, i.e., you don't want to be in a situation where you have surprises in the coming years, then perhaps your cash flow forecast and your financial planning isn't quite as robust as you think it is. So it may be something that we can help you take a look at. And finally, I think that understanding the drivers of your business, whether that be the plan itself and the main items that affect the swing in your business performance, the costs, the forecasting, how to capitalize your business and raise money, etc. If you haven't looked at all that in great detail, if you're an existing business and looking to change going forward, or if you're a new business looking to start up, then these are the things that you should be looking at coming into the new financial year. So that brings us to the end. Thank you very much, Patul.
Thank you.
It's really nice to spend some time with you. And also, Simon, thank you very much for your time. If anybody would like to be in contact with us, there will be a follow-up email coming out to the attendees, but really appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
I've summarized, but actually I do have a question here. So apologies to bring everybody back, but have a question here. Is there a requirement for all AI generated content to say that it's from AI? That's interesting. Simon,
So
you got a take on it?
Yeah, one of the companies I work with is a design creative business, very much forefront of technology. And yes, they will use ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and all the others because it's a fast way to get research and pull market information together. When specifically asked by the client if this was from ChatGPT, etc., I think they do say yes. But I think the reality is this is getting used more and more in every type of business right now. So it's almost commonplace to the point where I don't think you announce it. But I think if a client specifically asks the question, then yes, you have to be honest.
Well, I think that's a really interesting question, and it's probably one that one could debate. But I think that probably the takeaway from that is that if you are using AI to generate some of your financial data, for example, then don't, as our attendee has just said, don't assume that it's entirely reliable, number one, and always test it and really push and pull it in your own team. Or with your outsourced provider, because that's incredibly important. Don't rely on it entirely. So thank you very much for that question. Great. Well, look, thank you very much again, everyone, and we look forward to welcoming you to our next webinar series and any future events. And we'll be in touch, and you'll see us on the wire. But really appreciate your time. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.